about being a columnist is that sometimes people get furious at you over a particular column or issue. And then they'll come back later and they will commend you on something else you've said.
But you're not that same person.
You're not?
You're not. You're not that same person. If I write about racial issues, I'm just dirtbag. Do you understand? But if I write about how your grandmama needs more help, then I'm a good person. But you know, nobody is seeing that that person is multifaceted. You know, so I can't be suggesting that somebody look at the racial issues just as clearly as you look at the issues that are affecting your grandmother. Why? I'm not understanding why race is treated so differently than any other social issue that we consider, but it is.
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about race. In our newspaper today and on our website, we have another article about the achievement gap in the schools not being effectively addressed.
Right.
And after seeing this for more than 30 years, which is how long you and I have been here, do you start to get a little discouraged?
And in my column that I wrote the past week saying that I was retiring, I mentioned that my arms were getting tired holding the mirror up to you. You get tired of trying to show people exactly what they look like. You get tired of trying to explain things in a different way when that same issue continues to recur. So, yes, I have more than wanted to give up, but so I say, well, I'm giving up. I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm not, going to fight the fight anymore. Then that means my grandchildren will be living under the same problems that I lived under. I came through the initial wave of integration or desegregation. There was no such thing as integration. So I came through in my life in 5th grade through desegregation. And the way the country looks now, it's going back to segregation. And then my grandkids, if I don't fight, will have to go through what I went through, which was not all that pleasant. So I would not wish that on them.
Do you see that happening in Lexington? Do you think we're becoming effectively resegregated in some areas? I noticed in some of the discussion about redistricting of the schools, the way it was put was not so much, I don't want my child to go to school with someone of a different skin tone or a different economic background. It was always put in terms of my neighborhood.
I just want to stay in my neighborhood, and I'm sure everybody wants to stay in their neighborhood. I don't mind staying in my neighborhood. I like the folks in my neighborhood. All I'm asking is that you make my school just as good as the schools across town. Now, why can't that be done? You want me to stay in my neighborhood? I'll stay. I have no problem. I had a great education during segregation. They were allowed to hit you then. And I needed it. But I got a great education staying in my area. But what I'm saying now is staying in your area now does not mean the educational opportunities are the same. And that's the sad part about it. You're wanting to stay in your neighborhood because you know it's better than mine. Not because you think, well, everybody's got the same educational opportunities, and that's not true. You want to avoid mine because I don't have what you have,
The Herald-Leader, as you know, still receives complaints about you.
Oh, no!
And as someone who has received a few complaints myself, I always remind myself of what Kathy Stein said, which I want to share with you. You may have heard this. It's and I've always threatened to have it tattooed somewhere on me. And what she said is, I've been called worse by better.
Yeah.
Which I think is true.
I love readers because readers are my neighbors. And if I could go out and across my fence, talk to my neighbor and say, look, this is really what I meant when I said this, then maybe you could explain it to them a little better, because you're not at their table when they're reading the paper, so it is extremely difficult to get across your intentions when the reader is reading it in a different environment, you know.
And you've got 18 inches to address very complicated issues. The other thing I wanted to say, though, is that you've received many, many honors and recognitions for your work, including your recent induction into the Kentucky Civil Rights Hall of Fame.
Thank you, yes. I've received a bunch, but you know, we don't need to go into that. We'll just move on.
Well,
I don't like talking about that. I mean, because that, I don't do it for the awards. I don't do it for the accolades. Otherwise, if I did it for all of that, I would not be on 2 blood pressure medicines. You understand? Because that is not what I do it for. I would have gone home a long time ago if it was just for the accolades. I do it because I had to. There was nobody else saying some of the stuff that I was saying. And it needed to be said. Whether anybody was receptive to it or not, I apologize, but it needed to be said. There's so many people in this community who have gone most of their lives keeping their mouths shut because that was the thing to do in order to survive. And, you know, the Lord granted me this opportunity and I could not just let it go. I had to do what I had to do.